Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's the Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
Can we go, Peter?
Please, Peter, can we go?
If you wish it.
Get your things.
You too, Peter.
Would they send me to school?
Yes,
Then to an office.
I suppose so.
Soon I should be a man. You can't catch me and make me a man.
Peter,
I want always to be a boy and have fun.
you say so, but I think it is your biggest pretend.
All right, so we hopefully have given everybody sufficient time to watch the Coldplay Clocks video that is basically a Peter Pan 2003 clip show. Alex, thoughts?
How did you come to learn about this? This is kind of like, was this in promotion with the movie? Help me out here.
I experienced it in real time, so I'm assuming that it was, it was playing on MTV around the time that the movie came out. Because I remember just seeing it on rotation. I don't remember if it was before or after I watched the movie, but
that was a thing. We've talked about that in previous installments of the show. So there was like the different types of music videos for movies. There would be the one that involved actors from the movie interacting with the band doing it, a la You Could Be Mine, T2. And then there would be like the band would be playing and then clips from the movie would be inserted into it. And then lastly, there would be basically just like a sizzle reel where it would be a song with just all clips from the movie set to it. So that's crazy. I didn't know that got this treatment.
Yeah, sadly, that last format, that's the one that we get on the Coldplay Peter Pan video, because I would have loved to see Chris Martin and his band just flying around London with pixie dust, or Jason Isaacs playing the drums with his hook. Yeah, it's a curiosity. Coldplay the music of Coldplay doesn't come into play at all during the movie, but somehow they have a connection outside of it. So from Coldplay to critics, Alex, are you ready to hear some negative quotes about PJ Hogan's Peter Pan?
That was a pretty sick transition there. And now I'm looking at it. Apparently, the ending song from Howard the Duck by Cherry Bomb, they actually clipped that as a music video and it played in circulation on MTV. Go listen to our Howard the Duck episode to get proper praise for that.
Watch Howard the Duck.
Yes, please do. It's a better movie than this. All right, Julio, before we move to the negative, I do want to circle back. We mentioned that Roger Ebert was a fan of this film. He actually gave it 3.5 stars out of 4. So he enjoyed this. But 77%, that does mean there's a good contingent out there that chalk up that tomato meter score that weren't fans. What'd you pull for us?
All right, let's go to the green splotches. We're going to start with David Nussair from Real Film Reviews, who says, there's absolutely nothing innocent about this Peter Pan. He's a leering and repulsive twerp.
All right, calm down.
He's a child, and I think you might be projecting. Steve Rhodes from Internet Reviews says, what's next? Oklahoma without the musical numbers? What does Hogan's version offer in place of songs? A sex charge fairy tale.
Man, people are hung up on the sex thing. And what that means is if the same movie was released tomorrow, it would be only worse.
I agree. I was about to give you a counterpoint. I was like, oh, wait, no, we're not in Contrarian's Corner anymore. I don't have to argue against common sense. I will say, though, and I forgot to bring this up in Contrarian's Corner, it is weird that for a director who has distinguished himself as being very focused on the music of his movies during his first 3 films.
He does a musical without the music?
Basically. Well, I mean, I didn't need this to be a musical, but it's kind of weird how there is nothing musical about it. You know what I mean? You would think music has played such a big role in Muriel's Wedding, My Best Friend's Wedding, Unconditional Love. And then here, it's like nothing.
In 2 of those, music is central to the plot.
I would say all 3. Because, ABBA it kind of leads the music of ABBA powers Muriel in Muriel's Wedding.
Powers me.
Powers the world. My Best Friend's Wedding, I mean, there's music everywhere. I think that it's one of the ways that the characters express themselves, attack each other. And then, of course, Unconditional Love. I mean, Jonathan Pryce is the new ABBA. So,
and Barry Manilow at the end for some reason.
Yes. Anyway, on to Marshall Fine from Journal News, Westchester, New York, says, director PJ Hogan can't quite get the tone right here. And when he misses, he injects adult elements that may have parents squirming. This started to feel a little square, Alex. What exactly? I mean, we're not parents. You don't have kids. I don't have kids. But can you imagine taking your kids to watch this movie and squirming?
No.
I think that, if anything, it just goes over their heads.
Yeah. We've talked about that with a lot of kids' movies we've done. Or, not necessarily on the main feed, but discussed, elsewhere. Just the idea of a lot of times adult humor that's put into children's television shows, movies, books, what have you. The only times that they think that something's afoot is when adults make a huge deal out of it. Otherwise, it just goes right over their head.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give them that this Peter Pan is definitely... Man, even calling it sexual feels wrong because it's not it, but it is the way it handles that relationship between Peter and Wendy. I think it's probably a little more overt. I mean, they're just kids that are attracted to each other, and I think that that's where it ends. But I don't know. We're not used to that kind of stuff, and definitely
they're
not in the States.
indoctrinating our children.
Yeah.
The fairy dust is vaccines.
There's no social distancing in the Jolly Roger.
No, sir.
Okay, we're going to close with Mark Savlov from our very own Austin Chronicle, who says, there's really no way this film should have received a kid-friendly PG rating. Really, Mark?
Again, I've covered many, many times on here that I'm an extremely desensitized individual, but there's not anything in this that we brought up Josh Baskin earlier. Dude, there's an episode on it. Go listen to it. That was a movie that was rated PG, and it was marketed as a family-friendly film, and there's a scene in that where it depicts a 13-year-old boy having sex with an adult woman. So,
And look at Tom Hanks.
Where are the goalposts?
This belongs to you. And always will.
I wish I had read the book so I could tell you if this is... Because I got the feeling from those positive quotes we read in Contrarian's Corner when they were talking about how this is the way that Peter Pan should have been always. I feel like maybe this interpretation of the character, of the relationship between Peter and Wendy, might be closer to the original source material. And that's why the people that are celebrating that is because they're familiar with that, and they're like, oh, look, they finally didn't like tone it down for mass consumption, and they were a little
but still
more faithful.
like I the dates on those can sometimes be kind of jumbled, so I'm curious if those were contemporary or have been like, hindsight reviews. But like, I watched this movie and none of that resonated with me. And like I said, what mainly stuck out to me was how some of the visual effects look kind of hokey today. Like I think, in my opinion, like watching a movie like this now, after it's not the greatest movie of all time, but seeing the Avatar Way of Water 3D IMAX, like I've seen what you can do with computer graphics at this point. So I watched this and it looks hokey to me in a way that someone in 1998 probably watched Jaws and thought it looked hokey. You know what I mean? It's just like the evolution of things. The difference being, watching Jaws at any point, you're like, God damn, pal, this is a powerful movie. At no point during this was I like, God damn, pal, they're laying on the sex heavy with these kids. It's just...
Well, how familiar are you with the Peter Pan mythos? Because you kind of asked me that question.
Apparently not enough if there's like this vast catalog of pornography based off of it. I would say that I am familiar with the story of Peter and Wendy, and that's about it. I haven't seen the 53 animated movie since I was a kid. I watched it a lot when I was a kid, but I haven't seen it since then. It's, you know me. What about this appeals to my sensibilities for watching a movie? Like the fantasy adventure, like it's just not my wheelhouse, man. So can I say that this is a more faithful retelling? Can I say that they slathered on the proposed intimacy between them more? See, the way they're talking, it makes it seem like Wendy's like a sexualized character in this movie. And this is something we're probably more sensitive to in this day and age. So those reviews maybe are more recent. But yeah, at no point in this is like Hook pining after Wendy or, trying to make her his bride or something in a weird way. And yeah, that like we joke about in Contrarian's Corner, if you want to, it's just like The Big Thing. If you want to break it down, Peter's probably, 10 times the age of Wendy in this movie. But did I miss something? Were you uncomfortable with at any point in this or thinking that it was like too adult oriented? No. I thought it was, but I did feel the difference. And I was fine with it. I think that's the best thing about the movie. It's just that it because we already have. If anything, I thought Tinkerbell was like not sexualized is such an intense term, but like I thought Tinkerbell was definitely like more of a like look at me in a way, and that's not like a discredit to the actress who played her. In fact, according to Jason Isaacs, Ludivine Sagnier, and again, ma'am, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I do apologize. I guess they were going to have the Tinkerbell just be completely computer animated, but her audition or whatever was so good that they brought her on for it. But she seems very like the way they present her and her clear fawning for Peter. That is the closest it comes to me for like a romanticizing or calling out like, attraction between these characters. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even that register even less. I mean, not the weird love triangle. I mean, I think that's very clear and drives a lot of the story, and I think that's cool. But even that didn't even cross my mind as being something that could be weird. He is like Peter Pan is just such an offbeat character in a way. I think once you remove yourself from the Disney interpretation, which I think is a very straightforward, very mainstream, very approachable depiction of the character. And yes, it is an interesting story. And the Peter Pan character is just like we talked about, the whole idea of like refusing to grow up. Yep. Like that there is complexity there. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I agree with you. In this particular case, though, I never felt like I wasn't watching a kid's movie. Yeah, I think that because there's so much of the humor, so many of the gags are just very kid oriented. But I also never felt like that got in the way of me appreciating what I like about Peter Pan as a story and what I like specifically about this movie, which is that they really dig into playing Peter as this tragic figure
that is a child, but is also really old, right? But he's still, I mean, the tantrums he throws and his position, his views on life, they're very childlike. Like if a child had been around for like 100 years and hadn't really, which makes sense, right? He hasn't been exposed to adults, or the adults that he's been exposed to are enemies. And so he hasn't learned, he hasn't grown up. And so you can do a lot. There's a lot of gray areas once you start looking at that character beyond the cartoon, the animation that the world is familiar with. And that can make you uncomfortable, right? Because then you start potentially overthinking some things. It's like when you see Tinkerbell having a crush on Peter Pan on the animated version, and I haven't seen that movie in forever, so I don't even know if that's a thing there, right? But I think it's a lot easier to just buy it because it's an animation, or maybe if you read it. But when you're seeing it in the flesh, then maybe it just feels a little weird because they have an actual kid playing Peter Pan. So
yeah.
We as modern people, we see it and it's like, well, that's a kid. Same thing with Wendy, right? Like that's a little girl. And so I understand people that like, I see that and I'm like, huh, interesting. Right. And I can totally get there are people that see that and are like, oh no, that makes me uncomfortable. But I think that there's not like a hard line that this movie's crossing. I think that it's like on the right side of good taste. Like you said, They don't sexualize anybody here. It's like, it's about a kiss in the end. That's it, and Wendy having a crush on a boy, and the boy having feelings for her, but also knowing that embracing those feelings means that he has to grow up, and so he doesn't want to do that. I was like, that's the fact that they can tell that story in like an adventure movie that's very much aimed at kids, but yet an adult can pick up on those things and go like, huh, I know people like that. I know grown men and women that don't want to grow up. I think that there's a lot.
And that's adult oriented in a way, like themes that only adults would get. That's different than like Shmi being like, I got here too quick, and then Hook being like, that happens to me too. It's like
deleted scene.
I live with boys, the Lost Boys. They are well named.
Who are they?
Children who fall out of their prams when the nurse is not looking. If they are not claimed in 7 days, they are sent to the Neverland.
Are they girls too?
Girls are much too clever to fall out of their prams.
How do you feel about Peter Pan? Wasn't it? It was Jeremy something?
Sumter? Yeah. It's fine. It's one of the things I read that was like Tobey Maguire was considered for the role of Peter Pan. I was like, by fucking who? Spider-Man had already come out.
In what planet would that casting make sense?
Yeah.
He would be creepy then.
He's fine. Look, there's no one that blows me away in any capacity in this movie. I think the closest thing is I really like Jason Isaacs' Hook. Yeah. I think he's menacing and nasty and a good villain. But there's no acting in this that I was like, God damn, pal. And this Jeremy Sumter kid, I'll give him credit in that he goes for it. He's not like, at no point in this do I feel it's like a child actor delivering lines, as you and I are keen to harp on from time to time. And like I said, PJ Hogan, Christmas Day, Peter Pan, rather groundbreaking visual effects for the time. There's reason to believe that this was going to be a big hit. And being completely fair, no one foresaw how big Return of the King was going to be. So, or that whole trilogy in general. So I don't fault Universal for releasing this on Christmas Day, just a few days after Return of the King. What I'm trying to get at here is this Jeremy Sumter kid really goes for it, and he should have. If this had been as big as Return of the King, we'd still be talking about Jeremy Sumter today. He'd be
in the MCU.
I guess I was going to give him something more dignified, but
he'd be in the next Scorsese movie.
I was trying to think of a character. He would have had Jason Clarke's role in Oppenheimer. But anyway, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about him one way or the other?
I'm divided. I think that I think he works as a Peter Pan. I think that for the kids version or the kids movie angle, he's fine because I don't expect much of kid actors in a kids movie, which is I guess why he surprises me at times in the movie when he hits like some really good notes that go beyond what I would expect the range of a child actor playing a kid's character, right? Like I think that the moments when Peter Pan gets serious, like Peter Pan the character, and you can see the anxiousness or the defiance against growing up, I don't know if it's just that PJ Hogan broke it down for him and told him like, look, this is how I need you to emote, but I think that he nails like those moments, the serious moments. There are others that I just don't buy in so much. And I don't know if it's because the character of Peter Pan is meant to be artificial to begin with. And so the performance feels artificial when he's just being cocky and adventurous and whatever, I think that might be a problem I have just with the Peter Pan character and maybe not so much the performance. But when Peter Pan cuts the bullshit and tries to get in touch with the feelings or is forced to get in touch with his feelings, I think that's when the performance gets really good. And that's impressive because that's where you would think the performance would fail, right? If this kid didn't have chops, that's when I would point him out as something that doesn't work in the movie. I would say, man, he drops the ball at the most important junctures when he's supposed to be trying to escape growing up, to escape like confronting reality and all this stuff. But no, I buy it. So I was actually surprised because when the movie first started, I was like, I don't know about this. When he's, all the stuff with the shadow and Tinkerbell and flying, and I was like, this is very kiddie-like. So I don't know how if I'm gonna be able to endure it for like 2 hours. But no, I think that he nails it when it's important. So overall, I think that he does well. When I was scanning through the quotes, I saw that there were several rotten ones that would point him out as one of the problems with the movie. And I don't agree. I think that he's fine at worst and really good in the best moments. Not as good as Jason Isaacs. I agree. He's the MVP, but I've always liked him. So that's not a surprise for me. I mean, he's a really good actor. So I was like, yeah, of course, Jason Isaacs is going to rock as Hook. That was to be expected. I don't know that I expected it back in 2003 when I watched this movie. So this is your first time. I watched it when it came out, Alex. That was
in theater?
In theaters. This was shortly after I started working at the movie theater.
This is College Station, right?
Yes, College Station, yeah. When I started, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King was the big deal, and then everything else was there. I don't remember getting the feeling that Peter Pan had bombed. I just remember it being another big movie that came out, but I was so enchanted with the movie theater machinery that, of course, I wasn't really paying attention to that. And I thought it was like kind of like a big deal from the guy that did My Best Friend's Wedding. I didn't even know that Unconditional Love existed, and I hadn't watched Muriel's Wedding. So for me, it was like, oh, look, PJ Hogan, it makes sense. He made My Best Friend's Wedding, and now they're letting him play with a big IP. Little did I know that it was just getting trounced at the box office.
Old alone. Done for.
Peter Pan premiered at the Empire in Leicester Square. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Leicester.
I can never remember how it's supposed to. If my wife was listening, she would probably correct us both.
Ben's yelling at us right now. He's telling us how to pronounce it. This is on December 9th of 2003 and was theatrically released by Universal Pictures, Columbia Pictures, and Revolution Studios in the United Kingdom on December 24th of 2003. To our United Kingdom listeners, any of y'all on Christmas Eve go see Peter Pan? Did you guys fly away to Neverland before Christmas? As y'all say there, Happy Christmas. And in the United States on December 25th of 2003, Christmas Day, I'm trying to remember if I can remember anything I received on Christmas Day in 2003. That may have been the year of SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. If so, that was my Christmas morning, playing the absolute shit out of that game, one of the all-time wrestling games. The film received positive reviews from critics with praise for the performances, particularly that of Sumter, Herdwood, and Isaacs. Who is Herdwood? Is that the gal?
Wendy.
Yeah, Rachel Herdwood. It's a hell of a name. The visuals, romantic feel, and Howard's musical score. Didn't mention that. James Newton Howard, all-time great, providing the music here. However, it was a financial failure, grossing $120 million worldwide against an estimated budget of $130.6 million, not including marketing costs. resulting in a loss of between $70 and $95 million. One of the big things about this movie was that it went considerably over budget. Couldn't find necessarily what it was originally. Part of the thing of that specific number of 130.6 is the budget for it was not, from what I read, was not really being disclosed until it went over budget by so much. So I assume it was probably close to like the $100 million mark for this movie was the intended budget. And they overshot that. Some interesting names auditioned for the role of Tinkerbell. That's to get you to go watch our YouTube video for this, the warm up. We'll be talking about that more there.
I hope Kathy Bates is one of them.
Sumter did nearly all of his own stunts to prepare. He said he practiced sword fighting as much as 5 hours a day, as well as training in gymnastics and weightlifting. Isaacs also trained sword fighting as well. Principal photography began on September 17th of 2002 and concluded on May 5th of 2003. Dude, I wonder if they even know what Cinco de Mayo is over the United Kingdom, because that'd be awesome to have a Cinco de Mayo themed rap party. Taking place entirely inside sound stages on Australia's Gold Coast, Queensland. Man, if they don't know what Cinco de Mayo is in the UK, they sure as fuck don't know what it is in Australia.
Or maybe they do, but they don't care.
According to Fisher, the decision to shoot in Australia was based on the low value of the Australian dollar at the time. Hogan had originally planned on filming in a variety of locations, such as Tahiti, New Zealand, and London, but abandoned the idea after scouting some of the locations. And Universal just, they looked at him and, whoever the executive was put the glasses on the tip of their nose and just made where you rub your thumb against your index and middle finger, the money sign. Filming on sound stages did help, quote, retain some of the theatricality of the original play, something which Hogan thought was important. That was a weird time financially, the mid-2000s, in the sense of the varying degrees and value of domestic currency, because the Australian dollar was really weak, but then the pound was very strong to the dollar for a period of time. Famously, when Ricky Hatton fought Floyd Mayweather in Las Vegas in December of 2007, the pound was really strong, so much so that knowing that the MGM Grand only held about 11,000 people, I think something like 30 or 40,000 Brits flew over from the UK just to be in Las Vegas for that fight because it was so cheap, and just came over and drank the town away pretty much, and that fascinates me. And we're not here to discuss the Dow Jones, but you got to believe it's that post 9/11 few years, and we had the United States presence in the Middle East and shit. It's just, that's always fascinated me to hear stories like this, like the one I just said. And I know it was kind of all over the place there for a while, but of course, America's number one. We're the best. We do everything great.
And that's why we don't care for Peter Pan.
Yeah, exactly. If this movie had been filmed in Oklahoma, it would have made its money back. So there's definitely more to discuss in the realm of trivia that we'll be doing on our YouTube page. But closing on the financials, Peter Pan earned less than $50 million at the box office in the U.S. and then close to 75 outside, which brought to that 122 million worldwide gross that we mentioned. The film's failure was partly due to its competition with the highly anticipated epic fantasy Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, released the week before, and the family comedy Cheaper by the Dozen, which opened on the same day. Cheaper by the Dozen, Julio?
Yep, I remember it. I had a shirt. It might have been my first Cinemark shirt.
$190 million.
It's Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt?
Yes.
Well, there you go. Get Steve Martin play
Bonnie
Hook.
Hunt, the big Christmas Day name. If I remember correctly, Hilary Duff was a big name at that time, and she's like the third build on that. So
Tom Welling, who at the time was Superman in Smallville, he's one of the kids. I remember. I mean, yeah, that movie.
Oh shit, Daniel Day-Lewis was in it too.
And Coppola did Second Unit. So really, they capture every audience.
Peter Bogdanovich ghost directed several sequences in the movie.
George, the daughter of a clerk, cannot hope to marry as well as that of a manager. You must attend more parties, make small talk with your superiors at the bank. Wit is very fashionable at the moment.
Jokes aside, financial failures aside, it did go on to be nominated for several awards at the Saturn Awards, Critics' Choice Movie Awards, Las Vegas Film Critics Society Awards, Phoenix Film Critics Society Awards. It took home a Saturn Award for Best Performance by a Young Actor for Jeremy Sumpter's portrayal of Peter Pan.
There you go.
And then at the Young Artist Awards, looks like it won Best Family Feature Film in the realm of drama and Best Performance in a Feature Film leading young actor, again, for Jeremy Sumpter. So as we've made very clear in this episode, this movie did not go unrecognized. There's many folks out there who enjoyed it and made sure to put out into the ether that they did so. It's just one of those things, man. You're not ready to step up to bat against the guy who directed Dead Alive, you know?
But Alex, that's the thing. It's because you could say the same about Cheaper by the Dozen, right?
I'm kidding, because there is something to what you said earlier, dude. Americans, especially if this was released today, there is something to the joke you made a few minutes ago about Americans don't like Peter Pan, and we have the Disney classic, and that's about it. Any other interpretation of Peter Pan has not made the money of a Cheaper by the Dozen, or especially of a Return of the King. I just don't think it appeals, specifically this movie too, even with its visual effects and whatnot. I don't think it appealed to what audiences at the time were looking for necessarily in their family movies, and now less so with how little people are going to movies and shit. Can you imagine if another Peter Pan came out? Like, unless it was Taylor Swift playing fucking Tinkerbell. Oh, Jesus Christ. Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany level offensive there.
Well, Alex, I mean, we don't have to imagine it. It's happened. Peter and Wendy movie. Hang on. 2023 Family Adventure. Did he go straight to streaming? Maybe that's what happened. Director David Lowery. David Lowery is like an actual filmmaker. It's he did yeah,
it was Disney Plus.
Yeah, A Ghost Tale, right? I think that's Jude Law played Captain Hook.
Jude Law played Captain Hook. What on earth?
Jim Gaffigan played Mr. Smee.
No. Oh my God. Alan Tudyk played. Wait, why did he play Mr. Darling? He's supposed to be Hook. Anyway, what on earth?
All right. So the fact that you didn't even know about this movie probably tells you maybe Peter Pan is just not, because you said that the other one, the one from 2015, flopped. So yeah, maybe we're onto something. Maybe Peter Pan is just one of those things that doesn't work as a movie for whatever reason with American audiences. Even though on paper, if you tell me, hey, this is going to go against Lord of the Rings, I would say sure, because it's more of a kids movie. Lord of the Rings movies are not kids movies. So
look, jokes aside, and just my general outlook on the idea of like these classic late 1800s, 1900s fairy tales being translated, I should say, into modernized films, and that not appealing to American sensibilities and audiences. People thought Titanic was going to bomb and bankrupt, 20th Century Fox. So, stranger things have happened in terms of surprise box office hits. So, to your point, yeah. And like I said, those people who went and saw it in a big theater, this probably looked cool as shit at the time. This is the age, the time period of the Matrix, and people wanting to go and see something makes go, whoa. And, watching that flying sequence now seems silly and rudimentary, but I'm sure there were people that are watching that are like, man, it's never getting better than this. So,
except for, do you think that the people at 2 auditoriums down watching Cheaper by the Dozen, they were also going, wow.
Look how many kids they got into one shot.
There's 12 of them.
Dude, reportedly, that fucking Peter and Wendy movie cost $170 million to make.
Jude Law ain't cheap.
Dude, this is in line with what we were talking about in our Roadhouse episode, where you were like, Yeah, so what? It cost $80 million to make. What does that matter? Like, what's the plan to make that?
Not what I said.
Check it out on our Patreon.
Yes, please go to our Patreon so you understand that Alex is just making shit up.
How? I assume at one point they were going to send it to theaters, but then they were like, hey, remember that PJ Hogan movie from 20 years ago? How can you spend $170 million on a movie that you send to streaming and expect to make that? Anyway.
You're investing on your brand, man.
Oh, yes. Famously in need of assistance brand Disney.
I mean, I think streamers are struggling, so they're trying to be the last streamer standing. That's the one that's going to collect it all. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just theorizing. I've stopped trying to make sense of the business model. I'm assuming that somebody somewhere knows what they're doing. But here's the thing. If you tell me Peter Pan adaptation by Peter Lowry with Jude Law as Captain Hook, all right, I'll go see it. Except that I didn't, right? I knew that this movie existed. I didn't even know that it was a Disney Plus.
I don't know. Difference of the times, what we just said. You pitched this movie in 2001, 2002, a Christmas Day 2003. We're going to have kind of a modernized Peter Pan in which we, utilize all of the visual effects that we have today. Yeah, sure. I don't know what you can pitch in a Hollywood studio boardroom these days, with the exception, well, not even superhero movies anymore. I don't know what you can pitch and they'll be like, yep, it's going to work. Because, famously in our podcasting circle and our friend circle, we thought Oppenheimer was going to bomb, no pun intended. We thought it was going to be Nolan's first movie to lose money. And of course, LOL. But I imagine that's what happened with that Peter and Wendy movie. They're like, hey, a new Peter Pan. They're like, ugh. All right. Tell us how much it costs. We'll figure a way to write it off and then send it to the streaming service.
You're onto something in the sense that I just realized that I like this movie. I like PJ Hogan's Peter Pan with all its flaws. And I like the idea of Peter Pan. I like the exploration of those themes. But I am not dying to watch a Peter Pan movie. I was doing some soul searching. I was like, why didn't I at least try to figure out where Peter and Wendy was playing? I was like, because I don't really care. And I feel like I've gotten everything I can get out of that story, and so I don't need to see it again. So I wonder if there are people feeling that way also in 2003. People that are like, you know what, I've read the book, I've seen the play, I saw the Disney version. Why do I want to watch another Peter Pan movie?
And the biggest issue with this is there is no big name attached to it. That is, to me, if I was at Universal back in 2002 or whatever, this was like greenlit. That's the whole thing of the Christmas Day release of, okay, but there's no name on this.
I once thought of calling myself Red-Handed Jill.
What a marvelous name!
One of our favorite movies and a mission statement film for this podcast is A Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Ben Stiller remake.
Yep.
And that was a Christmas Day release in 2013. Did not do well at the box office. And it's shocking. It was only 11 years ago, but how much has changed in the film industry. But that, you want to talk about names, Ben Stiller, Kristen Wiig, Sean Penn is in that, Sissy Spacek, fucking on a lower tier, you got Patton Oswalt, you have, what's her name? I'm blanking on it. Catherine Hahn and
Shirley MacLaine.
I said Sissy Spacek. I meant Shirley MacLaine. Thank you for catching that for me. Adam Scott, and with this was a time even more so where name on the marquee meant something. So what I'm trying to say is this movie is not bad. I think it's a very good interpretation. It's what it wants to be. And I think it's visually at the time was a bit of an achievement, but for all the things we've talked about up until this point in the episode, it does not surprise me at all that this movie tanked.
It surprises me a little, but it doesn't, in the sense that as you were listing different examples, and then we always kind of come around to this point. I was like, there's no way of predicting. So,
correct.
On paper, it's like, this stands a chance. And then in reality, it just crashes and burns. I don't think that it's because of Lord of the Rings, or at least in big part because of Lord of the Rings. Because if this was just another fantasy epic, like Lord of the Rings, and I would say, yeah, of course, that's stupid. But this was its own thing. And it was the holidays. So I don't know. I think it's more like people just don't really care that much maybe about you have to be interested in order to go and like sit down and watch the movie first. And then, so
Correct.
whether you're going to like it or not, something has to get you into that movie theater. And maybe the concept Peter Pan just doesn't do it. I don't know. Prove me wrong, listeners. Tell me about a Peter Pan smash hit that somehow fucking Hook bombed, right?
Yeah.
And it bombed before people knew what it was about. Like, I think that on paper, the idea of Robin Williams playing a grown-up Peter Pan, that is, you would think, box office gold. And then it's like, well, after you sit down and watch it, you're like, oh, wait, this is not what I expected. This is sadder and messier or whatever, right? But the people that first went to see it, they didn't know that. So in theory, shit still made... I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe Hook made a lot of money, but
Although it was a commercial success, its box office take was lower than expected. So there you go.
So there's something to that. Anyway.
It's now considered a cult classic.
Well, of course it is. Someday I'll watch Hook again. Alex, because we ended up pushing this recording a week. When I was done with this Peter Pan, it was like when we finished the Neon Demon episode, where I was like, okay, I need to watch Bronson like right away. Well, I'm still like, I got the itch. Same thing here. Like I finished Peter Pan 2003 and I was like, you know what? I think I have enough time to watch the 2015 Pan and Hook before we record, so I can just give Alex like a play-by-play of the differences. And then I saw that Pan was not streaming for free anywhere. And I was like, okay, well, that's where it ends. So I'm not going to pay.
I'm done.
Yeah, I don't care that much. But anyway, before we wrap up, Alex, you brought it up earlier, and I realized I hadn't like really given her props, which seems unfair. But Rachel Hurd Wood, who plays Wendy, she's also really good. Like I was praising Jason Isaacs and Jeremy Sumpter, and she's really like the protagonist, and I think she's really good. It's just that maybe I was gonna say she doesn't have flashy scenes, but no, she does. She's there through the entire movie, and I think that she handles it. Arguably, she is better than Jeremy Sumpter because I don't think that she ever hits those false notes that I think he does. But of course, she's playing a more realistic character, so it makes sense. But I bought it. I think that she handles the idea of a prepubescent Wendy that, that's actually kind of like a hard line, I guess, to walk, or it could be depicting innocent attraction without going overboard, but she does it. I think that PJ Hogan and her performance, like they touch that in a very graceful way. The way they handle is very graceful. I was looking up her career in IMDb and I was like, oh, she went on and she had a career. She made a bunch of movies, so it's not like Peter Pan bombing. Like I don't think it ended anybody's dreams of Hollywood. Not even PJ Hogan's. How weird is it? You make two huge movies and then you follow them up with two bombs. I guess it's not weird in the sense that I know it happens all the time, but Unconditional Love is kind of like a movie that nobody knows about. And then Peter Pan 2003 is a movie that I think a lot of people know it as a bomb.
Yeah, it's PJ Hogan, the Peter Bogdanovich thing we've come across so far, especially with the Legally Yours being in there, and some of the other things we've discussed. The roadmaps you made for this have been just unbelievable trips that you don't know what's coming next. And PJ Hogan specifically, I was thinking about unexpected, box office smashes, and one of the biggest ones you could think of, in modern times is My Best Friend's Wedding. And you think of PJ Hogan, his ups and his downs, and then being given the reins to this, and it doesn't work out. So, well, what's next? I still got that movie on the shelf that I made with Kathy Bates, so let's see what we can do. I guess it would have been released at that time, but, got to get jokes off. Anyway, that's to come. What follows is to come, because we have Confessions of a Shopaholic, a movie I remember from working at the theater. But, Julio, you may be interested to know that the same year this was released, an independent film called Neverland was released, directed by Damien Dietz. It is a dark and surreal modern reimagining of the classic Peter Pan. presents the characters with a twist, featuring Peter Pan as an older androgynous teen, whereas the fairy Tinkerbell is a drugged and burnout girl. The Lost Boys are hot guys and potheads. The Darling children are adopted. Wendy Darling is black. Captain Hook is a gay leather man. And Tiger Lily is a transvestite. The events take place in Neverland, which is an amusement park in the film rather than the imaginary island.
I find it hilarious that this is, I'm assuming you're reading something that was written in 2003, where all the characters have this transgressive representations. And the thing with Wendy is that she's black. It's like, Jesus.
Will Wheaton is in it.
Playing who?
John Darling.
Oh, man. I was hoping he'd be Hook.
Yeah, I don't think so. And then just going further down the list, I didn't realize there was a Peter Pan, like an offshoot called Come Away that was released in 2020 that had Angelina Jolie and Michael Caine, Clark Peters.
What?
Come Away is a 2020 fantasy drama film directed by Brenda Chapman, starring David Oyelowo and Chancellor, Angelina Jolie, Clark Peters, David Jai, Michael Caine, Derek Jacobi. The film is an homage to the stories of Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. The characters of those stories are siblings who try to help their parents overcome the death of their eldest son. Box office return of 1.7 million, so it's sticking to what we're saying here.
Nobody cares. I hate that Neverland indie project, which sounds extremely try hard, it has more of a chance of me watching it than Peter and Wendy.
'Tis true, John. Your sister has been invited to piracy.
Oh, and you win again here, old man. Announced for 2024 for this year. That's where we're at, of course, 2024. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, the guy who directed the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey is
Don't get me. I could go on a 20-minute rant about that movement. I will tell you because I looked it up just a minute ago. It entered the public domain in 2024. So
that dude had his fucking Google notifications set.
Yep.
Like, yeah. How lazy.
Yep.
What's not lazy was PJ Hogan's attempt at a Peter Pan film. It sounds like Julio enjoyed it more than I did, but this is like a B-. This would be like a 3.5 star, 3 star. There were points in this where I found myself a tick bored, but it would quickly dissipate when they moved on to the next action sequence or something. It's good, not great, is how I would describe this movie.
I am torn between 3.5 and 4. It's probably 3.5. It's just that there's the moments I really like are like 4-star moments. Like I said, I like when the movie slows down and it's about the things I find interesting. But of course, the entire movie is not about that. There's a lot of just pirate bullshit that I don't really care about. I appreciate the boldness. I think that it's I think that PJ Hogan didn't make a cookie cutter Peter Pan movie. I don't know that even a cookie cutter Peter Pan movie would have succeeded, though. I think that it was just not in the cards for a Peter Pan movie to be a success in 2003. It might not have been in the cards ever in the past 50 years. I don't know. But I think that if he was going to make a Peter Pan movie, I'm glad that he went with one that was a little offbeat, and the special effects don't bother me. I mean, they looked a little... It's not even dated. I just felt that, what he said about the theatricality, that makes sense. It doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand the reasoning. I think I felt in a similar way back when we did that, the Little Shop of Horrors episode, the musical, where I remember the way that Frank Oz has staged the musical numbers. I remember feeling like they felt a little too staged. And I was like, well, yeah, because it was a play. And so he was just trying to bring that spirit into the movie. And so if PJ Hogan is saying, yeah, I was trying to make it look extra artificial because there's stage play that this is based on, that is a big influence. And yeah, I mean, I can see it. I don't know that I like it that much, but I appreciate the thought process. I'm going to land on 3.5 stars, might be 4 if I ever watch it again. I like it though. I wish I liked it more because some of its parts are really good. And maybe I just don't. I like the idea of Peter Pan more than the actual Peter Pan execution, whether it's book, movie, or attempt of an indie revolution, whatever that Neverland movie is trying to do.
I mean, it looks cheap. So,
from what year did you say it was?
It was the same year. It's from 2003.
Oh, why? Why would you do that?
I don't know, man. You know, you could say that London is a Peter Pan reimagining if you wanted to.
I think Drop Dead Fred is closer to Peter Pan than London.
Yeah, I'm just bullshitting at this point.
All right, Alex. So a C, you said, or B minus?
Yeah, B minus, C plus, somewhere in that range. 3.5 stars. Good, not great is my final word on this. But another valiant entry in the PJ Hogan book here. Sadly, I'm way more likely to tell someone to watch Unconditional Love, even though I think it's a worse movie.
I think it's a good double feature. It's like, you want to know how you
shot chaser.
This is how you slowly chip away at the goodwill you built up with your first two movies. Unconditional Love and Peter Pan. I like them, but yeah. All right. Well, Alex, coming up next, like you said, our next PJ party is going to be Confessions of a Shopaholic, which, man, that was a big deal. That's a book adaptation. I think I'm right. I think it's a successful novel. And so they gave him another big IP. Like, they didn't just write him off after Unconditional Love and Peter Pan. But nope. You're going to have to wait, because that's not our next episode. Next episode, it's another Bogdanov film, The Cat's Meow, starring Kirsten Dunst as the titular cat. I don't know if that's true. I've seen that movie, but I don't remember much about it. I just know she's front and center. And I think Orson Welles is one of the characters in there, which, Bogdanovich was friends with Welles. So good stuff all around. That one is fresh, 76%. So we'll be saying mean things about it at first.
All right, Julio, before we get out of here, though, let's be sure to tell our wonderful patrons out there what they can expect in terms of bonus episodes this month.
Well, let's start with Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we talk about other things, sometimes related to the main feed episode, sometimes not. This time, it's not. Alex, I'm going to be telling you about my most recent movie-going experience. I had to go see Inside Out 2. And by I had to, I mean my wife wanted to. And we had a couple friends that wanted to. And I love the first Inside Out. So sure, as much as I want to protest the never-ending onslaught of sequels and prequels and remakes, if you're going to go see a sequel, you might as well go see a Pixar sequel. So there I was, ready to have Amy Poehler make me cry again. So did she succeed? I'll tell you about that. And then, not a theatrical experience per se, but it is a new movie. And it's a new movie from a director that we mostly hold in high regard. That is Richard Linklater, whose new movie, Hitman, hit Netflix a few weeks ago. I don't know if he had a theatrical release, Alex. If it did, it was extremely limited. But you can for sure watch it on Netflix now. It stars rising star Glenn Powell, who's poised to take over Hollywood. He's been poised to take over Hollywood for years now. But this year, he has Hitman from Linklater, and he's starring in Twisters, which is, I think, a sequel to the original Twister. It's coming out this summer. But anyway, Hitman, it's a comedy. It's a Glenn Powell comedy, a Richard Linklater comedy. And it also has Adria Arjona as the co-star. And Adria Arjona, at least you probably haven't seen her in anything, but she was in that terrible Morbius movie. And then she was in a couple of Michael Bay movies, I think, that are kind of not great. And I think she was in a Star Wars TV show. Anyway, she looks like a Hispanic Winona Ryder. So I'm rooting for her. And I think Hitman might be the ticket for Hollywood to maybe start casting her in better movies, better projects. We'll see. But minor spoiler, I liked it a lot. So I'm going to tell you about Hitman, maybe convince you to watch it. And then I'll tell you about the latest Pixar offering in theaters now. What are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours, Alex?
Something not of this century. I'd been meaning, this movie had been on my in my mental queue for probably over a year now. When I first discovered it, it sounded so fascinating to me that I had to watch it, and I finally did after picking it up at a flea market. And it is the 1992 Stephen Frears film Hero, starring Gina Davis, Dustin Hoffman, Andy Garcia, amongst many other people. A very interesting satirical comedy drama from a time of very heightened action movies and a much different time in Hollywood. It's an interesting portrayal of the media and just a fascinating movie all around. Talk about the supernova of 90s hotness that is Gina Davis and Dustin Hoffman and Andy Garcia. So that's what I'm bringing to After Hours.
So that's the After Hours. Next, we have our QVRs. This month, we're doing individual QVRs. And Alex, it hasn't even been a year since we did our first Contrarians foray into anime. And here we are again, this time courtesy of patrons KT and OT. You are going to do a quick video review of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And I am going to be doing a video review of Porco Rosso. They're both Hayao Miyazaki movies. I have not seen either of them. I think we own Nausicaa. Porco Rosso might have to. Hopefully it's on Disney Plus because, everything is on Disney Plus. So that's the QVRs, the Contrarians, returning to Japanese animation. And then the bonus episode for the month of July, courtesy of patron Ben Murray. He is tasking us with tackling The Misfits, famously the last Marilyn Monroe movie, also the last Clark Gable movie.
By days.
It may have been their last as far as film history, but it's their first as far as the Contrarians go. So if that sounds interesting, check out our Patreon channel. That's where you find everything that we just told you about and much more in the archives. Go to patreon.com/Contrarian Prime and see how you would like to join the Contrarian supplements. And now, Alex, let's get out of here.
Let's do it. Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money he makes a year